Hey there, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. This is Talking to Myself, the part of the day where I talk to myself about things that I was thinking the night before, or in the case more recently, about a week. Shout out, of course, to all 732 subscribers. I have no idea how many people are subscribed, but if you are subscribed, I appreciate it because I never ask you to. And so I know that you're subscribing because you're either enjoying the content or, I don't know, maybe you just enjoy the pain of having to listen to my voice for anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes. So shout out to you. Of course, shout out to Saratoga Peanut Butter. Shout out to Lotus Flame Candle Company. Shout out to, the boys, Dorian Coleman, Lee DeLeon. Shout out to both of you guys. We're in the group chat right now talking about Lord knows what. Shout out, of course, to Young Ansel. Get better, brother. It's a big season for him. And so I'm proud of you and all your endeavors, my man. Shout out to my boy Anthony on YouTube. He's also frame.count on Instagram. And just shout out to the photography community in general. Also a very, very big shout out to my fiance. I know you watch these and you're watching this, but I would like everyone to know without you and you encouraging me because of how basically insecure and down on myself for trying to have a business, how I thought it was immature, it was stupid, it was a pipe dream. And now seeing it to where we're getting, larger checks than we expected and getting more work and, being able to have this as nice, steady side income for us to do fun things. I appreciate it because you're the reason why I actually stepped out and did this, because you didn't judge me, you didn't think anything of it. You completely supported me and you still to this day. So without you, there wouldn't be this, there wouldn't be my business, there wouldn't be a lot of things. So I truly do appreciate you and all that you did for me. I'm glad the pandemic happened strictly because I met you. So shout out to you, of course. And just shout out to the Fujifilm community. Not to say that I'm fanboying, but the guys, everyone, it's really nice. Everyone's really polite. So a couple things to talk about. Been doing some work, a lot more shoots. I mean, they're going to be playing. I've already shown you videos in a prior, or photos in a prior video of what the photos look like. They're intentionally set up that way because we're trying to make a more uniform website. So I'll begin working on the website, and this weekend I'm supposed to be going to New Mexico in order to train them whenever it comes to the marketing side, using social media like Instagram and Facebook to make targeted ads, as well as just revamping all the social media and then re-looking at their graphic design. I had to edit out a burp right there, so if there's like this weird little jump, that's exactly what happened. But yeah, whenever it comes to work, things have been going great. Again, the X Pro 3 is fantastic. I've not gotten the XT3 yet. The reason why I've not gotten the XT3 because I didn't notice this, but it's coming from overseas, so it has to go through customs. I'm not upset about it. I've got a pretty good guarantee on it. I'm pretty patient. It's going to come just the right time. I got a little bit extra cash for some jobs that I did. And so I'm looking, and right now I'm going through a decision to make where I've got 4 lenses that I'm potentially looking at getting. And the reason why I'm looking at getting these 4 lenses are because, number one, they aren't arsenals that I have in my bag. That's one big thing to think about whenever it comes to purchasing lenses. For what you're using it, this is going to be basically just my theory on how you go about purchasing body and lenses. So I'll start with bodies actually. So whenever it comes to bodies, I use the X Pro 3 strictly for photography and videography right now. I'd like to switch strictly to photography for the reason being I don't want to have to adjust any settings. I want to just be able to pull it out, never have to worry if I'm in continuous or in single mode, manual focus, all these things. Just go when I begin shooting. Don't have to worry about where my ISO is or where my shutter speed's at. Just run it the way I want to run it for photos, because 9 times out of 10 I'm in and I know how to adjust my environment on the fly, and it's easier to know that I'm not going to press the button and I'm going to record a video instead of taking a photo that I in turn missed. So I purchased an XT3. When you're purchasing a second camera body, always remember, this purchase of the second camera body does not have to be better than the camera that you have right now. Remember that, because a lot of times people will be like, oh, I've got this XT3 and now I want to buy an XT4 so that my XT3 can become my B camera. Here's the thing to remember. You're spending all that extra money to now make your main camera, which is doing just fine and will produce basically the same image as the XT4, and especially with the software update, we'll be able to focus like the XT4, all that extra money for what? So that you can tell people you have the newest A camera that you can get from Fujifilm, the XT4. That doesn't make sense. That's not the way you should purchase. What you should do is look at what you need. Okay, I myself, I have a camera that I do video on, but I want one dedicated that I can put a rig on, okay? I want one dedicated that I know will match anything I do if I use my X Pro 3 as a B camera, okay? This needs to be my prioritized A camera, all right? I want something that if I need to, I can get a battery grip for extended battery life. I want something that's gonna be small, light, okay? And I want something that's gonna have autofocus that's similar. Because of that, the XT4 was in the wheelhouse, the XS10 was in the wheelhouse, but the biggest thing is, okay, why would I spend extra money for a camera that's only going to be used for video when I can get the XT3 for a lot cheaper, which I did on eBay, $640 for that, and the lenses and everything that came with is ridiculous. If I get something cheaper that works, that'll do exactly what I want it to do. It may not be the newest, but it gets the job done. That's what you have to look at, okay? You know, if you're a wedding photographer and you shoot with an XT4, it doesn't mean you need a second XT4. An XT3 or an XT2, if you're just doing photos and you're just using it as your second camera to have a wide angle lens so you can have your hold fast moneymaker, you can have your telephoto lens in one hand, and then your other hand you can have your wide angle lens. You're not taking many wide angle lenses during the wide angle shots during the ceremony. You don't need to have a camera that's gonna have a burst rate of 50 frames per second to match your other 50 frames per second to be better. You just need one to get the shots you need. You have to know yourself and know your projects, and that's going to help you. The XT3 is going to do great. I'm not shooting long format 1 hour run times. These interviews are going to be maybe anywhere for documentary between 15 to 20 minutes. There's going to be breaks in between. I saved money, so now I can get myself a Blackmagic Video Assist or an Atmos Ninja, whatever, so that I can record even, you know, for even longer run times. You have to understand there should be a limitation not only on what you spend, but also on the IQ of the product you're getting. Now I understand you're going to future-proof stuff, and oh, if I have this, it's my number one now, and I future-proofed. But at the same time, if this camera's been your workhorse and you know that it can be your workhorse for a longer time, why would you replace it with a new camera that can be your workhorse so that this camera is not using its full potential? That's just the way I see it, period. A lot of people do things different. I'm not saying don't go for the newest stuff. I'm just saying for me, I don't buy just because it's the newest shiny thing. I buy because of practicality and because what am I actually going to use it for? Okay, if I ever use the XT3 for photos, you know, it's just going to have some plain run-of-the-mill presets like my Portrait 160 preset, and maybe you know, a black and white like the Ilford HP5. It's going to be a video rig though. It's probably going to have the cage on it that I purchased with it the whole time. It's probably going to you know, have the monitor on it. It's probably going to have whatever lens I decide to put on it at all times. It's not like this is going to be one, oh, you know, I'm going to travel and oh, I haven't given the XT3 much love. No, this is a dedicated camera for a dedicated series of events, and that's the way you've got to look at it. You're a wedding photographer, you feel like you need a second camera body, okay? Then you need if you have a zoom on one camera that's long and you have a wide zoom on the other camera, you just have to ask yourself, okay, with this wide zoom, am I gonna have to take that many quick shots? Am I gonna need something that's great for video? Okay, no. Okay, then an XT2 will do great. An XT3 will do just fine. An XT30, an XT20 will do great. Don't get wrapped up into the optics on, oh, well, does it look professional? Listen, I go to all these shoots with this X Pro 3 and a leather grip on it and it's small as hell. I've never once had anyone ask me if I'm professional. They've always been blown away by the images. They don't have to ask, because once they see the images, once they see your work, they'll know. That's my idea on that. That's how I go about purchasing bodies. I don't think about what's the newest thing. I think about what I need, what are the limitations of what I need, and will this go a little bit over and above it? And if it does, I purchase that. I don't have to future-proof anything, because let's be honest, I'm restarting right now because Dorian Coleman told me not to cuss because it'll help me with the algorithm, but people aren't buying 1080 anymore. Or people aren't watching 1080 really on their phones ever since YouTube messed everything up. People are just watching whatever they can. They're streaming at whatever bit rate they can. A lot of times it's 720. Not a lot of people are watching YouTube on their giant screens, and even so, when they're watching it on their giant computers, their iMacs, their Dells, whatever, they usually have it boxed in, or it's in the background. Listen, don't worry about shooting 4K, 6K, 8K, unless you're shooting a feature-length film, which again, just saying, no one really, and from a professional standpoint that I've seen, no one's really, you know, kicking rocks over the fact that they don't have 8K right now in any of the films they're doing. So anyway, that's just my idea on that. But whenever it comes to lenses, my 4 lenses that I'm going to be purchasing or thinking about purchasing, and what comes down to is the practicality and what it would be used for. This lens would most likely have to be, so there's a couple of avenues I can go. With the XT3 for $640, I also got an XC 35 f2, which is the basically plastic fantastic 50mm from Fujifilm at f2. And then I have the 18 to 55 kit lens, which everyone knows is a great kit lens, OIS. You know, I don't think it's WR, from Fujifilm as well. I also got that. And so my thinking was this: I can sell the 18 to 55 for about $300 or so and use that to help purchase another lens because I have the money for it. And maybe I could get either the 16 to 55, which would be, a great lens for basically all arounder. It would stay on the XT3. It doesn't pop, doesn't poke out too much when zooming actually at it, because I don't think it's internal zoom. It's a great focal length. It's at a 2.8, which is, good enough, because I'll be using proper lighting. I'll be recording video on this. It'll do fine enough with that. And then, sometimes if I want to take it out, maybe on a vacation, I only want to bring that one lens. Who knows? Maybe I bring a 16 to 55 or something. The 90 f2. And the reason is, and I'll tell you the reason why I'm thinking about these drastically different lenses. The 90 f2 is great at autofocus again. I could use it for video if I wanted to at 135 millimeters if I needed to, as well as could do great for me with portraits. It could do great for me with weddings and stuff if I get back into them, because I have been inquired about doing some weddings. And it's a great length at 135 to shoot down an aisle. And then the other lens that I'm thinking about is a 70 to 300, because I've heard great things about the 70 to 300. Fantastic things. It could also be used for video if I needed it to. Not so much that I would want it to, but it could be used on both cameras if there was ever a situation where I needed to. That would be also if I got back into sports photography with the San Antonio FC. And with Austin FC. So I've got those two, and then the last lens that I'm considering is just waiting for the 56 1.2 Mark II, just seeing what it does. And so the reason why I've got these 4 different lenses on my mind is because they all hit different focal planes for me. Of course, the 16 to 55 kind of overlaps whenever it comes to the fact that I've already got a 50 millimeter lens that would hit in between that 60 to 55 effective focal length, and I've already got a 50 millimeter lens, and I've already got an 18 millimeter, which is effectively a 28 millimeter lens. So I understand that, but at the same time, it's just an all-in-oneer, and that would be more for video and everything. Like, that would be primarily a video camera or a video lens. I couldn't really imagine taking it to photos that much, but because I have so much going on, that's where the other 3 lenses come into play. They're great lenses for weddings, and that's what I think about. They're great lenses for weddings. The 7300 would be a great lens for sports photography. I don't care what anyone says. Oh, it's not that fast. Listen. It's actually better when you're doing sports photography to get as much as the action in focus, because being able to see these people, see their reactions to a play, see a player's face, see people dragging, pulling on them, someone in the background celebrating, that's a big deal to making the shot more dynamic than it is at shooting shit at 1.2, stuff at 1.2. God, I'm going to get better at this. And so it may seem like that's all over the place. It may seem like it's jumbled, but the thing is I have multiple applications I can use them for. I'm doing this brand reface, and everything with that. I'm doing videos for documentaries, everything that goes with that. I'm doing all this stuff for potentially shooting sports photography at San Antonio FC and Austin FC. I'm doing that, as well as weddings, which comes into that. And the other thing to think about is each one of these lenses, if I get them, I can still do video and things with other lenses that I have. Of course, the 35 1.4 is great for video work. So if I was to get a 75 to 300 or the 90 millimeter and I felt like those are too long, I still have that 50. I still have this nifty 50, this 35 1.4 from Fujifilm, which does great at video. I can just lock it into manual focus after I get a person in focus at maybe f2.4, the person I'm interviewing, and then go from there. If I'm using, like the 16 to 55 for video work mostly, and I want to go travel. you know, that's a great lens to travel with. It's just a one nice all around. It's 2.8. It's a great sharp end-to-end lens. I've had it before. That's actually one of the two zoom lenses. The other one would be the 7300 that I recommend to people because I've tried them or I've owned them, and I like it so much because the image quality. The 7300, the same thing. It has a lot of applications that can be used for video because of how great it is for just recording with the autofocus. The 100mm doesn't really affect me when it comes to how far things are. It's actually a lot of, if you're thinking about it, because this is just the way I think. It's really nice to have a longer lens when shooting video because not only the background compression, but it also helps you hide a lot of the blemishes, I would call them, that can show themselves in a video as far as props, lighting, mics, boom mics, things like that are leading everywhere else. You get a more narrowed in version of the person. You compress their body a little bit, make them a little bit slimmer, and then you're also cutting out a lot of the junk that's around them, and you're actually able to move it in a little bit closer because there's less of a surrounding area. And so the 90mm f2, which is great at autofocus, and the 70-300, which is a great price and also great at autofocus from what I've tested, are great in that regard. And the 56 1.2 Mark II, I had the 56 1.2. I loved the look of it, but I didn't like the way it focused, and it was really hard to focus, manually. So I just never fell in love with it, and I ended up selling it because I had a 35 1.4. If I get that lens, and the f2 is pretty good, that would be a short enough focal length to where I'd feel comfortable using that to record video. I'm sure the autofocus would be better, but it would be nice. I'd have that tighter, better background compression. I'd have reach, and shooting at that lens at f4 for weddings is fantastic. I'd have more reach. I'd be able to use that. It probably wouldn't be my main portrait lens because it doesn't have the same effect that I like about the 35 1.4 at the 50mm, but it would be one that I could bust out and use every once in a while, and it wouldn't be too bad. And maybe, I don't need it for low light. It would just be one that if I needed more reach, maybe I have someone stationed somewhere where I needed to get close to them, or for weddings and things like that. The 90 f2 and the 56 1.2 Mark II would both be good in that regard. At the same time, with the price of a 70-300, I could still keep both of the lenses that I get with this, the 15, the 18-55 for video work if I wanted something tighter, and I could still give away the I plan on giving away the XC35 f2. These are just some thoughts of the things that I have, and I'm honestly spitballing because I've been thinking about it. I've been trying to decide it. That candle's going on, and it's like super duper lovely because it's reflecting off the screen of one of my computers. It's I'm spitballing with you guys because I'm sincerely thinking about it. What do you think I should do? Do you think the 16-55 would be a better all-around lens for me with everything I discussed, with sports photography, wedding photography, portrait photography, branding product photography, and documentary work? Would the 70-300 be better for all those? The 90 f2, would it be the 56 1.2 Mark II when that comes out? Remember, I've already owned 3 out of those 4 lenses, and I've spent a little bit of time with the 70-300 before, and so I understand the images and how it works, and it's pretty smooth, very very small, pretty light. That's one of the great things. With the hood on there, it looks a lot bigger. I think you can put the extension on it. I mean, there's just a lot of good that can be done with that lens, and the images are sharp. I mean, that's the thing, is they're sharp. It's great at focusing. It tracks people, especially on the X Pro 3 with that algorithm. I could see myself personally having 28mm for wide shots on the X Pro on the XT3 for these events, and then the 70-300 on the X Pro 3 for reaching out. I could just double cross it, hold fast money maker, it together. So that's just what I'm thinking. The 16-55 is nothing to shake a stick at. Neither is the 90 f2, and neither is the 56 1.2 Mark II. It won't be anything to shake a stick at. They're all great lenses that can do fantastic things for me, and that can, for applications, do great. But it's just a matter of, what's the best application? And the ranking that I have them right now, because of jobs that I have lined up, because again, I always say you should prepare your gear for the jobs you already have. It's the 16-55, the 70-300, the 90 f2, and the 56 1.2 Mark II. That's the order that I have them listed in. It'll be a little bit before I buy them. I don't have to get anything to me until mid-July. And so I'm taking that time to research it, think about it, hear from you guys, look back at images. I'm taking the time to research it. Never make an impulse buy. Always try eBay bids. Always be patient. Always look at MPB and KEH. Always look at places that have money back guarantees with their used gear. I wouldn't buy any of these lenses new. That's just me, except for the 7300 because it's only like $800. But again, I would not buy any of these lenses new except for that lens, because at this point you kind of have to. It's not worth it. It's not necessary. You can get them on the used market for a couple $100s off, and they work fantastic. They work great, and they're more than what you think that they would ever be. Am I going to be using these for street photography? No. That's what I have, the 28 millimeter or the 18 f2 and the 35 1.44. Am I going to be using them for family events? Maybe not so much, because you know, I don't want to be carrying around that big ass 16 to 55 around and these other long lenses. But will I use them professionally? Yeah, and I might use them a lot. And for that reason, that's why I'm thinking of these lenses. So if you guys have an idea, if you guys have a thought about that, please feel free, leave a comment, talk to me about it. If you have these lenses, talk to me about what you use them for. If it's just hobby work, if it's just this, that, send me links to your Flickr, send me links to your Instagram, send me links to your Google Docs. It doesn't matter. I would love to look at these photos with you, talk to you about them. I want to start kind of going over the history of some of my favorite photos. I talked to two guys, three people actually. Young Ansel's the same way. Dorian Coleman, you know, Lee DeLeon. They know a lot about the history of photography, and I don't. I focus on the three guys that I studied and helped shape what I do. And you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I like to look at a lot of editorial and documentary photography work as well. I have a book, Life Magazine and the Power of Photography. That right there has been a great inspiration. I have a lot of National Geographics. That's an inspiration. I go things a different route when it comes to that. But one thing I am interested in is knowing about these photographers that took these famous sports photos. I love sports. I love sports photos. I'm talking about, you know, the catch in the back of the end zone of 49ers and Cowboys. I'm talking about the recent LeBron dunk that mimicked the Kobe dunk. I'm talking about the Jordan jumping in the air with his fists after, you know, he hits a game-winning shot against Cleveland in, I think, like the second round of Game 6, second round of or Game 7, second round of the Eastern Conference semifinals or whatever it is. You know, I'm thinking of all these things. I'm thinking of the home, you know, World Series home runs, the walk-off home run that Toronto hit against the Phillies, and I forgot what year it is, you know, and who even hit it. Golly, I'm totally blanking. Things like that. I want to know the story about it, the energy about it, and I'd love to discuss that and talk about the composition, the way they set it up, see what f-stop they were at, see if the background's blown out. Because a lot of times we've started to think portrait photography is the only photography there is. And that's not the thing. Is we've gotten so used to YouTube and YouTubers telling us, oh, this is what photography is because look at these portraits because they're so blurry in the background. That's not what photography is, man. Photography is more than that. And you have to understand that it's not just blurring out a background. What it is telling a story. And you'll see, hopefully by doing this, and hopefully if you guys are sports people, you'll pay attention, you'll see more and more and more that your favorite photos of your favorite players, of your favorite iconic moments from your favorite teams, they're not shallow depth of field photos. They're not perfect photos. They don't have everything set up perfectly. They're not perfectly weighted. Some of them have some weird flash going on. There's so many things that are wrong. But because the person's there at the right time, captures the right moment, and again, a lot of these aren't even spray and pray shots. Because of that, the right exposure, that they had everything done before that moment happened. You're able to see how that moment tells a story, and not only the subject, but everything around that subject tells the story of what really went down. So shout out to all the people that are in sports photography, and shout out to the people that do wildlife, that do birding, that do things like that, to where you have to adjust your settings to where you're not f1.2. You can't afford that, because you guys are the real MVPs, because it's easy to isolate a subject and say, oh, that's what you should focus on. It's harder, you guys, way harder for sports photographers, wildlife photographers, people like that to tell stories than it is for anyone in a controlled environment. Because at 1.2, at 2.8, even, you can freeze up your subject and isolate them to where you don't need everything else to tell a story. They're smiling, they're doing this, that, and the other. Okay, that's a story. To tell an environmental story, to be able to do these things and capture it at the right time where there's not an isolation of the subject is a lot harder. And to get it framed up just right, knowing that there won't be forgiveness because your background's showing, is a lot harder. And so my hats are off to you, and I respect the hell out of you guys. So I'll be looking to do that. And then I'm looking really hard. I'm trying really hard to get some guys on the podcast: Dorian Coleman, Lee DeLeon, Anthony. You guys know what's up. Hoping to get you guys on. So shout out to everyone again. I really do appreciate it. Shout out to my fiance, and you guys have a good one.